I came to my son's for dinner, but at his house he said, "Who invited you, old woman? This is only for family. Leave." I turned around and left. The next morning, I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end. And let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I had lived alone for 3 years since Robert passed away. Our small house in Vermont felt emptier with each passing season, but I'd learned to fill my days with gardening, book club meetings, and weekly phone calls with my son Richard. He was my only child, my pride and joy, now 42 and seemingly successful with his own family in Boston. For months, I'd noticed something shifting. Richard's calls became shorter, more distant. "I'm busy, Mom," he'd say, cutting our conversations to 5 minutes. When I suggested visiting, there was always a reason why it wasn't a good time. Jennifer, his wife, stopped responding to my text messages altogether. Was I imagining things? Was I becoming one of those paranoid elderly mothers who saw rejection in every missed call? But I pushed those thoughts aside. Richard had invited me to dinner, actually invited me. "Come over next Saturday, Mom, 6 o'clock. We're having a family dinner." My heart had soared. Finally, things were returning to normal. I spent the entire week preparing. I bought a new blouse, had my hair done at the salon, and baked Richard's favorite apple pie, the recipe his father had loved. The drive to Boston took 2 hours, but I didn't mind. I sang along to the oldies station, imagining my grandchildren's faces when they saw Grandma's pie. The sun was setting when I pulled up to their colonial-style house in the suburbs. Beautiful, really. The lawn was perfectly manicured, the windows glowing with warm light. I could see shadows moving inside, people laughing, gathering. My family. I grabbed the pie carrier and my purse, walked up the stone pathway, and rang the doorbell. My hands trembled slightly with excitement. How long had it been since I'd hugged my grandchildren? 3 months? 4? The door opened. Richard stood there in a crisp button-down shirt, a glass of wine in his hand. But his face, oh God, his face didn't light up when he saw me. Instead, his eyes widened with something that looked like annoyance? Horror? "Mom? What are you doing here?" The question hit me like a slap. You invited me to dinner, Richard. Saturday at 6. "I'm here." He glanced behind him nervously, then stepped out onto the porch, pulling the door nearly closed behind him. Through the gap, I could see people in the living room, well-dressed adults, wine glasses, laughter. Not a single child in sight. "This is a dinner party, Mom. For adults. For our friends." His voice was low, harsh. "Who told you to come?" "You did, Richard. You called me last Sunday and—" "That was for next month, Mom. And it was supposed to be just lunch. This—" He gestured at the house behind him. "This is for family. Our family." The words hung in the air between us. Our family, not including me. "But I'm your mother. You're embarrassing me, old woman." The words came out sharp, cutting. "Jennifer's colleagues are here. I can't have you shuffling around in there looking like this. Just go home." I stood there, frozen, the pie carrier growing heavy in my hands. Behind Richard, I heard Jennifer's laugh, bright, performative. Someone asked, "Richard, who's at the door?" He turned his head and called back, "Just a solicitor. I'm handling it." Then he looked at me again, and in his eyes, I saw something I'd never seen before. Shame. Not of his behavior, but of me. "Go home, Mom. I'll call you next week." He stepped back inside and closed the door. Not slammed, that would have drawn attention. Just closed it firmly, with a soft click of the lock. I stood on that porch for what felt like an eternity, but was probably 30 seconds. The evening air grew cold. Through the window, I could see Richard rejoining his party, smiling, holding up his wine glass for a toast. I turned and walked back to my car, placed the pie carrier on the passenger seat, started the engine, and drove away. The tears didn't come until I was on the highway. Then they came in waves, blurring the road ahead. What had just happened? When had I become so worthless to my own son that he couldn't even admit I was his mother? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Robert's old armchair, staring at the apple pie I'd left on the kitchen counter, untouched. The house creaked around me, each sound a reminder of my solitude. By sunrise, I'd stopped crying. Instead, I started thinking. Really thinking. When had this started? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through our text messages. Richard's responses had grown shorter over the past year. Busy. Can't talk. Maybe later. I'd attributed it to his demanding job as a financial consultant, his family responsibilities. But what if it was something else? I opened my photo albums, the physical ones Robert and I had kept for decades. There was Richard at 5, gap-toothed and grinning. Richard at graduation. Richard's wedding day, where Jennifer had smiled at me and called me Mom. What had changed? Then I found it. A photograph from 2 Christmases ago, the last time I'd actually spent a holiday with them. In the picture, Jennifer stood slightly apart from me, her smile tight. Richard's arm was around her, not around both of us, bringing us together. And my granddaughter Emma, then 7, was reaching for me. But Jennifer's hand was on her shoulder, pulling her back. Had I been blind? Or just desperately hopeful? I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with a notepad. The same notepad where Robert and I used to plan our budgets, our vacations, our life. Now, I was planning something different. What do I want? I wrote at the top. The answer came quickly. Respect. Acknowledgement. To not be erased from my own son's life. What do I have? I wrote next. More than Richard probably thought. I had Robert's life insurance, $200,000 I'd barely touched, living modestly on my pension. I had this house, paid off. I had my sound mind, despite Richard's implication that I was some confused old woman. And I had something else. I had rights. Grandparents' rights. I'd read about them once in a magazine at the doctor's office. In Massachusetts, grandparents could petition for visitation if they'd had a significant relationship with their grandchildren. Emma and Tyler, I'd been there when they were born, babysat them weekly until 2 years ago when Jennifer started making excuses. But did I want to take my son to court? The thought made me sick. Yet what was the alternative? To disappear quietly? To let him pretend I'd never existed? No, Robert wouldn't have wanted that. Robert had been a quiet man, but he'd had a spine of steel when it mattered. Stand up for yourself, Maggie, he used to say. No one else will do it for you. I picked up my phone and did something I hadn't done in years. I called my younger sister Patricia in California. Margaret, do you know what time it is here? I need your help, Pat. Something in my voice must have registered because her tone changed immediately. What happened? I told her everything. The dinner invitation that wasn't really an invitation, the door closed in my face. The words old woman, spoken with such contempt by my own child. Patricia was silent for a long moment. Then, what are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not going to just accept this. Good. Patricia had always been the fierce one. You need a lawyer, Margaret. A good one. Family law. Let me make some calls. I don't want to sue him, You want him to take you seriously? Then you need to show him you're serious. You don't have to file anything yet, but you need to know your options. Let me help you. After we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose. I wasn't just Robert's widow anymore, wasn't just the grandmother who baked pies and waited for phone calls. I was Margaret Elizabeth Harrison, and I deserved better than this. I spent the next 3 days researching grandparents' rights in Massachusetts, family law attorneys. I read stories online from other grandparents who'd been cut off from their grandchildren, some due to divorces, others to family feuds. I wasn't alone. On Wednesday, Patricia called back. I found someone. Her name is Catherine Brennan. She's in Boston, specializes in family law, particularly grandparents' rights. She's expensive, but she's good. I already spoke to her, told her your situation. She'll see you next Monday. Pat, I can't afford. Yes, you can. You have Robert's insurance. This is exactly what it's for, protecting your family. Even if your family doesn't want to be protected. Monday. 4 days away. 4 days to decide if I was really going to do this. I looked at the photo of Robert on the mantel. He was smiling, his arm around me at our 40th anniversary party. What would you do? I whispered. But I already knew the answer. Catherine Brennan's office was on the 14th floor of a glass tower in downtown Boston. Professional, intimidating, expensive looking. I almost turned around in the elevator, but I didn't. Catherine was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. She offered me coffee, which I accepted gratefully, and then she listened. Really listened. I told her everything, even the embarrassing parts, even the moments that made me question whether I was overreacting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. Mrs. Harrison, I'm going to be direct with you. A grandparents' rights case is difficult. Massachusetts law requires you to prove that you had a substantial relationship with your grandchildren and that visitation would be in their best interest. I did have a relationship. I was there every week until your daughter-in-law started making excuses. I believe you, but we'll need to document everything. Every missed visit, every phone call, every text message. Do you have those? Most of them, yes. Good. Now, I want you to understand something. Filing this petition will likely destroy what's left of your relationship with your son. It will be hostile. They will fight back. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Richard's face when he called me old woman. Yes. All right. Before we file anything, I'm going to send a letter to your son. A formal letter from my office stating that you're seeking regular visitation with your grandchildren and proposing mediation. This gives them a chance to resolve this without court. It also establishes that we're serious. When? I can have it couriered to his home address tomorrow. He'll receive it by end of business Wednesday. I signed the retainer agreement and wrote a check for $5,000. My hand shook slightly, but I did it. This was happening. The letter arrived on Wednesday at 4 p.m. I know because Richard called me at 4:47 p.m., his voice shaking with rage. What the hell is this, Mom? You're threatening to sue me? I was in my garden, pulling weeds. I stood up slowly, my knees creaking. I'm asking for what I should already have, Richard. Time with my grandchildren. By sicking a lawyer on me? Do you have any idea how this looks? Jennifer opened this letter. She's furious. She thinks you're trying to destroy our family. I'm trying to be part of it. By taking us to court? Jesus Christ, Mom, you're insane. This is exactly why we didn't want you around the kids. You're unstable. You're vindictive. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my voice steady. The letter proposes mediation, Richard. We can sit down with a neutral third party and work this out. That's all I want. We're not doing anything. You want to see the kids? You should have thought about that before you started acting like a crazy old woman. Emma asked about you last week, and you know what I told her? I told her Grandma was too busy to visit. But now I'm going to tell her the truth, that Grandma is trying to hurt Mommy and Daddy. Richard, please don't contact us again, and tell your lawyer that if she sends another letter, we're getting a restraining order. You're harassing us. He hung up. I stood there in my garden, phone in hand, dirt under my fingernails. My heart was pounding, but beneath the hurt, I felt something else. Clarity. He'd threatened me with a restraining order. He'd called me unstable, vindictive, crazy. He'd said he was going to poison my grandchildren against me. I went inside and called Catherine immediately. "He called you?" she asked. "What did he say?" I repeated the conversation word for word. She was quiet for a moment. "Mrs. Harrison, did you record that call?" "No, should I have? Massachusetts is a two-party consent state, so legally you couldn't have without telling him. But I want you to do something. Write down everything he said while it's fresh in your memory. Every word. And from now on, I want you to document every interaction you have with him or his wife. Texts, emails, calls. Screenshot everything. Save everything." "You think this is going to court, don't you?" "Yes, and when it does, his behavior will matter. Judges don't look kindly on parents who alienate grandparents out of spite, especially when those grandparents had a prior relationship with the children." That night, I couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't from despair. It was from understanding. Richard wasn't protecting his children from a difficult grandmother. He was protecting something else. His image? Jennifer's control? Whatever it was worth more to him than I was. On Thursday morning, I received an email. Not from Richard, but from Jennifer's account. The subject line read, "Final warning." The message was short. "Margaret, you need to stop this immediately. We have decided that your presence in our children's lives is toxic and harmful. If you continue to pursue legal action, we will be forced to protect our family by any means necessary. We have documented your erratic behavior and will use it in court if needed. This is your last chance to walk away with dignity. Jennifer." I read it 3 times. Documented my erratic behavior. What behavior? Bringing a pie to dinner? Loving my grandchildren? I forwarded the email to Catherine with a single line. "Is this a threat?" She responded within the hour. "Yes, and it's exactly what we needed. Save it. Print it. This shows their intent to alienate you regardless of the children's best interests. We're filing the petition next week." The petition for grandparents' visitation rights was filed on Monday, October 23rd. Catherine hand-delivered it to Richard's workplace, a deliberate choice. "They need to understand this is official," she explained. "Not a family squabble, a legal matter." The response came faster than expected. On Wednesday evening, Richard and Jennifer appeared at my front door. I saw them through the window, both dressed in business attire, their faces set in hard, angry lines. For a moment, I considered not answering. But that would make me look afraid, wouldn't it? I opened the door but didn't invite them in. "We need to talk," Richard said. His voice was tight, controlled. Behind him, Jennifer had her arms crossed, her expression cold. "My lawyer advised me not to speak with you without her present," I replied calmly. "Oh, cut the legal bullshit, Mom." Richard stepped closer. "You want to play hardball? Fine. Let's play. We're going to fight this petition with everything we have. And when we're done, you won't just lose visitation. You'll lose everything." "Richard, I just want to see my grandchildren." "You should have thought about that before you humiliated us." Jennifer cut in, her voice sharp. "Do you know what you've done? That petition was delivered to Richard's office. His colleagues saw it. His boss asked questions. You're damaging his career. I didn't choose where it was delivered." "Like hell you didn't," Jennifer's composure cracked. "You planned this. You hired some shark attorney to make us look bad, to make it seem like we're keeping you from the kids. Well, guess what? We have lawyers too. And we have evidence." She pulled out her phone and thrust it toward me. On the screen was a series of text messages, from me to Richard, from over the past 6 months. Messages I'd sent asking about the kids, suggesting visits, offering to babysit. "Look at this," Jennifer said. August 14th. "Let me know if you need me to pick up Emma from soccer. I'm free anytime." August 21st. "I haven't heard back about Thanksgiving. Should I make plans elsewhere?" September 9th. "Richard, please call me." "I'm worried I did something wrong. She scrolled through more messages, her voice dripping with disdain. You're obsessive, Margaret. You're constantly pushing, constantly demanding attention. This is harassment. This is exactly why we limited contact. Because you can't respect boundaries. I felt my face flush, but I kept my voice steady. A grandmother asking to see her grandchildren isn't harassment. It is when we've made it clear we need space. Richard's control was slipping now, too. Mom, you're 68 years old. Don't you have your own life? Friends? Hobbies? Why are you so fixated on us? The question stunned me into silence. Why was I fixated on my only child and his family? How was that even a question? Jennifer saw my hesitation and pounced. We spoke to a psychiatrist, Margaret. We showed them your messages, your behavior. They agreed that this level of attachment isn't healthy, especially at your age. Have you considered that maybe you need help? I don't need a psychiatrist. I need my family. Well, you can't have it. Richard's voice was flat now, final. Not on your terms. We're willing to offer you something. Supervised visits, twice a year, on our schedule. That's it. Take it or withdraw your petition. Twice a year? Supervised? They're my grandchildren, not strangers. Take it or leave it, Mom. Because if this goes to court, we're going to tell the judge everything. About how you showed up uninvited to our dinner party, drunk. I wasn't drunk. About how you've been sending increasingly erratic messages. About how you've alienated yourself from other family members. Jennifer smiled coldly. We've already spoken to your sister Patricia. She confirmed you haven't visited her in 3 years, that you rarely call. We'll paint a picture of an isolated, obsessive woman with no life of her own, trying to insert herself into ours. My heart was racing. Patricia wouldn't say that, wouldn't she? We have the phone records, Margaret. You called her once in 2023. Once. But you text Richard 5, 6, 7 times a week. It's not normal. They were twisting everything, making my love look like pathology. And the terrifying thing was, would a judge see it that way too? I took a deep breath. I'm not withdrawing the petition, and I'm not accepting twice yearly supervised visits for children I helped raise. Richard's jaw clenched. Then you're making the biggest mistake of your life. When we're done, everyone will know exactly what kind of person you are. They turned and walked away, leaving me shaking in my doorway. I called Catherine immediately. She listened to everything, then said, they're scared. Everything they just did, the threats, the psychological evaluation claims, the character assassination, that's desperation. They know they don't have a strong case, so they're trying to intimidate you into backing down. But what if they're right? What if a judge does think I'm obsessive? Then we'll show the judge the truth, that you're a loving grandmother who had regular contact with her grandchildren until it was arbitrarily cut off, that you tried reasonable communication before seeking legal help, that their response to your petition has been hostile and alienating. You're doing the right thing, Margaret. After the call, I poured myself a glass of Robert's Old Bourbon, something I rarely did, and sat in the darkening living room. I gave myself permission to rest, to not think about court dates or lawyer fees or my son's hatred for 3 whole days. I needed to gather my strength, because I knew this was far from over. The package arrived on Saturday morning, delivered by courier. Thick, expensive cardboard, my name written in Jennifer's perfect calligraphy. Inside was a framed photograph. Emma and Tyler at the beach, laughing, building a sandcastle. A recent photo. Tyler's hair was longer than I remembered. There was also a letter, typed on heavy cream stationery. Dear Margaret, we've had time to reflect on our conversation. We realize this situation has become more adversarial than necessary. We're all family, and family should work together, not fight in court. We're prepared to make a generous offer. Withdraw your petition, and we'll arrange monthly video calls with the children. Additionally, You can visit in person 4 times per year: Christmas, Easter, and 2 summer visits. These will be unsupervised and can last a full weekend. We'll also include you in family photos and updates via email. We want the children to know their grandmother. However, this offer requires complete withdrawal of all legal action and a signed agreement that you will not pursue further legal remedies regarding visitation. Our attorney has drafted the necessary documents. This is a genuine attempt at reconciliation, Margaret. But it requires trust on both sides. The ball is in your court. We hope you'll choose family over conflict. With hope for the future, Richard and Jennifer. I read the letter 3 times, staring at my grandchildren's faces in the photograph. 4 visits a year, monthly video calls. It was more than I had now, more than the nothing they'd given me. I picked up the phone to call Catherine, but stopped. What would she say? That it was a trap? That I deserved more? But did I? Maybe Richard was right. Maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe this was the best I could hope for. I set the photo on my mantel next to Robert's picture. Emma's smile looked so much like Richard's when he was young. God, I missed them. My phone rang. Patricia. Hey, Maggie. Just calling to check in. How are you holding up? I told her about the offer, about the photograph, about how tempting it was to just sign the papers and have my family back. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Do you remember when Mom got sick? The question seemed random. Of course. Why? Do you remember how Dad's sister, Aunt Helen, tried to convince him not to pursue aggressive treatment? She said Mom would be more comfortable just accepting her fate, that fighting would only prolong suffering. She made it sound so reasonable, so compassionate. I did remember. Dad told her to go to hell. Because he knew it wasn't about Mom's comfort. It was about Helen not wanting to deal with the mess, the expense, the inconvenience of a sick sister-in-law. She dressed up her selfishness as concerns. Pat, what are you saying? I'm saying that letter isn't about reconciliation. It's about control. They're offering you scraps and calling it a feast, and they want you to sign away your rights to ever ask for more. Don't fall for it. She was right. I knew she was right. But still, I'm tired, Pat. I'm tired of fighting my own son. Then rest, but don't surrender. There's a difference. After we hung up, I looked at the letter again. Trust on both sides, it said. But when had they ever trusted me? When had they ever treated me as an equal, rather than an inconvenience to be managed? I called Catherine. I'm rejecting the offer. Good, I'll draft a response. The following week, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to a support group. I'd found it online. Grandparents Denied Access, meeting every Tuesday at the community center. There were 12 of us that night, ranging from a man in his 50s to a woman who looked to be in her 80s. Different stories, same pain. A woman named Dorothy spoke first. My daughter-in-law got a restraining order against me, said I was emotionally abusive because I criticized how she fed my grandson. Now I haven't seen him in 2 years. Another woman, Carol. My son got divorced, remarried. New wife doesn't want reminders of the old family around. That includes me, a man named Frank. My daughter moved to Oregon with her new boyfriend. Didn't tell me until they were gone. I found out from Facebook. When it was my turn, I told my story. The dinner party, the petition, the threats. They nodded. They understood. No one told me I was overreacting or obsessive or pathological. After the meeting, Dorothy approached me. You're doing the right thing, fighting. Most of us waited too long. We thought love would win out. It doesn't. You need legal protection. I'm scared, I admitted. Good. That means you're taking it seriously. But don't let fear make you settle for less than you deserve. I drove home that night feeling something unexpected. Solidarity. I wasn't alone. I wasn't crazy. This was happening to grandparents everywhere, and it wasn't right. Richard and Jennifer were waiting by my front door when I pulled into my driveway. Here we go again. They looked different this time. Richard had lost weight. His face was drawn, tired. Jennifer wore less makeup than usual, her expression softer. Almost vulnerable. "Mom," Richard said quietly, "can we come in? Please? We just want to talk." Every instinct screamed not to let them inside, but I was raised to be polite, and old habits die hard. I unlocked the door. They sat on the sofa, my sofa, where Robert and I used to watch television, where Richard had sat as a boy doing homework. Jennifer's hands were folded primly in her lap. Richard leaned forward, elbows on his knees, the picture of earnest concern. "Mom, we got your lawyer's response to our offer," he began. "And I understand why you rejected it. I do. We were trying to control the situation instead of really listening to you. This was new." I sat in Robert's armchair, wary. "Go on," Jennifer spoke up, her voice gentle. "Margaret, I owe you an apology. I've been protective. Too protective. I grew up with a difficult relationship with my own grandmother, and I think I projected that onto you. It wasn't fair." She reached into her purse and pulled out more photographs. Emma at her school play. Tyler learning to ride a bike. "You missed these moments. We took them from you. That was wrong." My throat tightened. Those were my grandchildren growing up without me. Richard continued, "We want to fix this. Really fix it. Not with lawyers and court dates, but like family. We were thinking, what if we started fresh? You could come to dinner this Sunday. A real dinner. Just us. The kids would love to see you." "They ask about you constantly," Jennifer added. "Emma drew you a picture last week. She wanted to mail it, but we told her maybe it wasn't a good time. But it is a good time now, Margaret. If you're willing." I wanted to believe them. God, how I wanted to believe them. "What about the petition?" I asked. Richard waved a hand. "Withdraw it. We'll work out a schedule together, like adults. No lawyers, no courts. We'll even put it in writing if you want, a family agreement. You can see the kids as much as is reasonable." Define reasonable. "Every other week?" Jennifer suggested. "Maybe alternating weekends? We want the kids to have a relationship with you, Margaret. We just need to rebuild trust first." There it was, the hook hidden in the bait. "Trust," I repeated. "Trust that you'll keep your word this time? Like you kept your word about the dinner invitation? Or about the monthly updates you promised last Christmas?" Jennifer's face flickered, just for a second, before the gentle mask returned. "I know we've made mistakes." "No." I stood up. "You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose to exclude me. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to threaten me when I stood up for myself. And now you're choosing to manipulate me." Richard's expression hardened. "We came here in good faith. You came here because your lawyer told you that fighting a grandparents' rights petition is expensive and messy and might actually work in my favor. You came here to trick me into giving up my legal recourse in exchange for vague promises you have no intention of keeping." "That's not true," Jennifer's voice rose. "We're trying to save this family." "By asking me to trust you? You who called me toxic. You who threatened to get a restraining order. You who told me I was harassing my own son by wanting to see my grandchildren." I walked to the front door and opened it. "I'm not the same woman you humiliated at your dinner party. I'm not going to shuffle away quietly because it's more convenient for you. The petition stands." Richard stood, his face flushing red. "You're going to regret this, Mom. We tried. We really tried. But if you want war, we'll give you war." It was never war to me, Richard. It was just love. You're the one who weaponized it. Jennifer grabbed her purse, her composure completely shattered now. "You're a bitter, lonely old woman who has nothing better to do than make our lives hell. No wonder Dad died. He probably couldn't stand being around you anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. Richard actually gasped. Jennifer, but she wasn't done. You want to know why we don't want you around the kids? Because you're pathetic. You're clinging to us because you have no life, no friends, nothing. You're a black hole of need, and we're tired of pretending we don't see it. Get out, I said quietly. Gladly. She stormed toward the door, then turned back. You're going to lose in court, Margaret, and when you do, we're moving. Somewhere you'll never find us. The kids will forget you ever existed. They left, the door slamming behind them. I stood in the sudden silence, shaking. Jennifer's words echoed in my head. No wonder Dad died. How dare she? How dare she weaponize Robert's death? But beneath the hurt, I felt something else. Clarity. This was who they really were. Not the smiling family in Christmas photos, not the respectful son who called me Mom in public. This was their truth. I texted Catherine. They came to my house. It went badly. Call me tomorrow. Then I poured myself tea with hands that trembled and sat in the dark living room for a long time. Fear whispered that maybe Jennifer was right. Maybe I was pathetic. Maybe I should just let go. But then I thought of Emma's drawing that I'd never received, Tyler's bike riding that I'd never witnessed. All the moments they'd stolen from me. Number fear would not win tonight. Determination would. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined. Oak paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench that looked more like an office desk. This wasn't criminal court with juries and drama. This was family court, where futures were decided in muted tones. Judge Patricia Morrison was in her 60s, gray-haired, with reading glasses perched on her nose. She'd been reviewing our case files for 20 minutes while we sat in silence. Catherine sat beside me, perfectly composed in her navy suit. Across the aisle, Richard and Jennifer sat with their attorney, Marcus Webb. Expensive suit, Harvard law ring, everything about him screaming money and confidence. Finally, Judge Morrison looked up. This is a petition for grandparents' visitation rights under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 119, Section 39D. Mrs. Harrison is seeking regular, unsupervised visitation with her grandchildren, Emma and Tyler Wright, ages 9 and 7. Mr. and Mrs. Wright oppose this petition. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, both attorneys said in unison. All right. Mr. Webb, you may present your case. Marcus Webb stood, smooth and practiced. Your Honor, this case is unfortunate but straightforward. Mrs. Harrison is a grandmother who, despite having had a relationship with her grandchildren, has demonstrated behavior that makes the parents reasonably concerned about her influence. He clicked a remote, and a screen behind him lit up with text messages. My messages to Richard. These messages show a pattern of excessive contact. Between January and September of this year, Mrs. Harrison sent an average of 12 messages per week to her son. Many went unanswered, yet she persisted. This isn't normal grandparental affection. It's obsessive behavior. I felt my face burn, but Catherine had prepared me for this. Stay calm. Let him talk. Furthermore, Webb continued, Mrs. Harrison appeared uninvited at my client's home during a private dinner party. She became confrontational when asked to leave. This incident raised serious concerns about her judgment and respect for boundaries. That's not what happened, I started to say, but Catherine touched my arm. You'll have your turn, she whispered. Webb introduced more evidence. A statement from Jennifer's psychiatrist, whom I'd never met, suggesting that enmeshment with extended family can be harmful to child development. Emails I'd sent, asking about school events. Even a receipt from the apple pie I'd brought to the dinner party, somehow framed as evidence of my intrusive behavior. Richard took the stand, looking sad rather than angry. A calculated choice, I realized. I love my mother, he said, his voice breaking slightly. But over the past 2 years, she's changed. She became fixated on our family. Every conversation turned into demands to see the kids, criticism of how we were raising them. Jennifer and I tried to set healthy boundaries, but Mom saw that as rejection. Can you give an example? Webb asked. Last Christmas, we invited her for dinner. She arrived 3 hours early while we were still preparing. When Jennifer asked her to come back at the scheduled time, Mom accused us of not wanting her there. She left crying, sent me 15 texts that night about how we'd ruined her holiday. It was a lie, a complete lie. I'd arrived early to help with cooking, something I'd done every Christmas since Richard got married. Jennifer had told me they didn't need help, that I was getting in the way, and I'd left to avoid conflict. I scribbled a note to Catherine. He's lying. I have texts from that day. She nodded calmly. Jennifer took the stand next, tearful and trembling. I've tried so hard to include Margaret, but every gesture gets twisted into something negative. If we can't make a weekend visit, she accuses us of keeping the kids from her. If we suggest video calls instead, she says we're replacing real relationships with technology. Nothing is ever enough. She dabbed at her eyes. My children are my world, Your Honor, and I won't expose them to someone who makes every interaction emotionally exhausting. They're starting to feel anxious when Margaret visits because they can sense the tension, more lies. Emma and Tyler had never seemed anxious around me. They'd run to me with hugs, climbed into my lap for stories. Your Honor, Webb concluded, this isn't about keeping a grandmother from her grandchildren. It's about protecting those children from an unhealthy relationship pattern. We ask that the petition be denied. Judge Morrison turned to Catherine. Ms. Brennan? Catherine stood, and I saw something in her expression that made me sit up straighter. She looked like a wolf that had just caught the scent of blood. Your Honor, I'd like to call Mrs. Margaret Harrison to the stand. I walked forward on shaking legs and was sworn in. Catherine's first question was simple. Mrs. Harrison, did you arrive uninvited to your son's dinner party? No. Richard called me on Sunday, October 15th, and invited me to dinner on Saturday, October 21st, at 6 p.m. I have the phone records showing a 12-minute call that day. Catherine entered the phone records into evidence. Webb objected, but Judge Morrison overruled. Did you become confrontational when asked to leave? No. Richard told me I was embarrassing him and to go home. I left without saying another word. Why did you bring a pie? It's Richard's favorite. I always brought dessert when visiting. It's what families do. Catherine pulled out her tablet. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence a series of text messages. These are from December 24th of last year, the Christmas that Mr. Wright described. She displayed them on the screen. Richard, December 24th, 9:15 a.m. Mom, come over around 11 if you want to help with cooking. Me, 9:17 a.m. Perfect. See you soon. Me, 11:03 a.m. Here. Knocking but no answer? Jennifer, 11:25 a.m. Margaret, we actually have it under control. Can you come back at 3 for dinner? Me, 11:27 a.m. Of course. Sorry for the confusion. See you at 3. Not 15 emotional texts, not accusations. Just polite accommodation. Judge Morrison's expression shifted slightly. Mr. Webb, your client testified that Mrs. Harrison sent 15 texts that night, accusing them of ruining her holiday. That's what my client reported, Your Honor. Perhaps there was perjury? Catherine's voice was sharp. Your Honor, I have 6 months of text message records between Mrs. Harrison and her son. The average is 3 messages per week, not 12. Most are brief check-ins. I also have dated photographs showing Mrs. Harrison with her grandchildren at regular intervals until February of this year, when contact was suddenly cut off with no explanation. She paused. What Mr. and Mrs. Wright have characterized as obsessive behavior is actually a grandmother asking why she's no longer welcome in her grandchildren's lives. Your Honor, this is... Webb started, but Catherine cut him off. I'd also like to note that the psychiatrist's statement Mr. Webb entered into evidence is not based on any examination of Mrs. Harrison or her grandchildren. It's a general statement about enmeshment, with no specific relevance to this case. It's junk science meant to sound authoritative. Judge Morrison removed her glasses. Mr. Wright, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I remind you that you're under oath. Did your mother send you 15 texts on Christmas Eve? Richard's face went pale. It felt like 15. I might have been. Did she or didn't she? No, Your Honor. Did she arrive 3 hours early uninvited? I invited her to help cook, but then Jennifer. He stopped, realizing what he was admitting. Judge Morrison turned to Jennifer. Mrs. Wright, you testified that the children feel anxious around their grandmother. Have they told you this, or are you interpreting their behavior? Jennifer's polished composure cracked. I'm their mother. I know when they're uncomfortable. That's not what I asked. Have they verbally expressed anxiety about their grandmother? They don't need to say it. So the answer is no. Judge Morrison made a note. Ms. Brennan, do you have anything else? Catherine smiled. Just one more thing, Your Honor. I'd like to submit an email sent from Mrs. Jennifer Wright to Mrs. Harrison on October 19th. She read Jennifer's final warning email aloud, every threatening word, every accusation of erratic behavior, the warning about protecting our family by any means necessary. Does this sound like parents concerned about their children's well-being? Catherine asked. Or parents angry that a grandmother won't accept being erased from her family? The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison looked at Richard and Jennifer for a long moment. I'll have my ruling within 2 weeks. We filed out in silence. But I saw Richard's hands shaking. I saw Jennifer's jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. They knew they'd lost. The call came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 13 days after the hearing. Catherine's voice was warm, almost amused. We won, everything. I sank into Robert's chair, phone pressed to my ear. Everything? Judge Morrison granted your petition in full. You're entitled to 1 weekend per month, alternating major holidays, and 2 weeks during summer vacation. All unsupervised. She also ordered the rights to facilitate regular phone or video contact, minimum once per week, and to include you in school events, medical updates, and family occasions. Oh my God, there's more. The judge was, let's say, displeased with their testimony. She wrote in her ruling that their behavior constituted parental alienation without legitimate cause, and that their testimony contained material misrepresentations inconsistent with documentary evidence. That's legal speak for they lied under oath. Will they be punished? She stopped short of contempt charges, but she's requiring them to attend co-parenting counseling. Yes, even though you're not a parent, the principle applies. They have to learn to facilitate a healthy grandparent-grandchild relationship. And Margaret? If they violate this order, you can file for contempt, and she's already indicated she won't be lenient a second time. I couldn't speak. Tears were running down my face. The order goes into effect immediately, Catherine continued. Your first weekend visitation is scheduled for 2 weeks from now. They're required to confirm the details with you within 3 business days. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my small house and cried. Not from sadness this time, but from relief. From vindication. From the simple, overwhelming fact that I would see my grandchildren again. The email from Richard arrived that evening. No pleasantries, no acknowledgement of what had happened. Emma and Tyler are available for pickup on Friday, November 17th at 5 p.m. They must be returned by Sunday at 6 p.m. Please confirm receipt of this message. So cold, so clinical. But I didn't care. I confirmed receipt. The 2 weeks crawled by. I prepared the guest room, 2 twin beds with new sheets, stuffed animals I'd been saving for years. I stocked the kitchen with their favorite foods. I planned activities, the children's museum, the park, baking cookies together. Friday arrived. I drove to Richard's house, my heart pounding. When I rang the doorbell, it was Richard who answered, not Jennifer. His face was expressionless. They're ready. He stepped aside. Emma and Tyler stood in the hallway with small overnight bags. They looked uncertain, confused. How much had they been told? Grandma? Emma's voice was small. I knelt down, ignoring my creaking knees. Hi, sweetheart. I've missed you so much. Mommy said you were sick. Are you better now? Sick. Of course that's what they'd been told. I'm much better now. especially because I get to spend the weekend with you. Tyler, quieter and more cautious than his sister, asked, "Are you taking us away from Mommy and Daddy?" The question broke my heart. "No, honey. I'm just taking you to my house for a visit, just like we used to do. Remember my garden? Remember making cookies?" A flicker of memory crossed his face. "With the blue flowers?" "Yes, the delphiniums. They're not blooming now, but we can plan what to plant in the spring." Richard cleared his throat. "You need to have them back by 6 p.m. Sunday, not a minute late." "I understand. And they need to call Jennifer every night before bed." Catherine had told me this might happen, attempts to maintain control through conditions. "The court order says weekly contact. I'm happy to do nightly calls this weekend, but moving forward, we'll follow the order." His jaw clenched, but he said nothing. What could he say? I drove away with my grandchildren in the back seat, Emma chattering nervously about school, Tyler silent, but watching me in the rearview mirror. That weekend, we didn't do anything extraordinary. We baked chocolate chip cookies. We watched movies. We went to the park and fed ducks. I read them stories at bedtime, the same books I'd read to Richard when he was their age. On Saturday night, after they'd called Jennifer, a strained, brief conversation where she asked if they were okay 3 times, Emma climbed into my lap. "Grandma, why did you stop visiting us?" I chose my words carefully. "It wasn't my choice, sweetie. Your parents and I had a disagreement, but it's resolved now. Mommy said you didn't want to see us anymore because we were bad." White-hot rage flashed through me, but I kept my voice gentle. "That is absolutely not true. You are perfect, and I always wanted to see you. I'm sorry if you thought differently." She hugged me tighter. "I drew you a picture every week." "I know, baby. Your mom told me. I wish I could have seen them." "I saved them, all of them. They're in my closet." When I returned them on Sunday at precisely 6 p.m., Jennifer answered the door. Her eyes were red, her face puffy. She looked like she'd been crying for days. "Did they eat properly?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Yes. Did they seem happy?" I could have been cruel. I could have twisted the knife. But that's not who I was. "They were wonderful. We had a lovely time." She nodded stiffly and took their bags. Richard appeared behind her, equally haggard. As I walked back to my car, I heard Tyler say, "Daddy, why can't Grandma come to dinner at our house?" I didn't hear the response. Over the next 3 months, a pattern developed. I saw Emma and Tyler every month as ordered. They opened up more each visit, relaxed into the routine. They stopped asking if I was sick or if they'd been bad. Richard and Jennifer remained cold but compliant. They sent the required updates about school events. They facilitated the phone calls. They had no choice. I heard through Patricia, who'd become friendlier with Jennifer's sister, that the court case had caused Richard significant problems at work. His boss had questions about his judgment. Several colleagues had distanced themselves. Jennifer had lost her position on the PTA board after another parent pointed out that someone involved in a contentious court case shouldn't be representing family values. Their marriage was strained. Jennifer blamed Richard for mishandling me. Richard blamed Jennifer for escalating the situation. I felt no satisfaction in their suffering, only sadness that it had come to this. But I didn't regret fighting, not for a second. Spring arrived, and with it, transformation. My garden bloomed again. Emma and Tyler helped me plant tomatoes and delphiniums, their laughter filling the air. I'd joined a book club, made genuine friends, started volunteering at the library. My small house felt alive again. Drawings on the refrigerator, toys in the guest room, joy echoing off the walls. The court-ordered phone calls became something the kids actually looked forward to. Emma shared playground stories. Tyler discussed his favorite books. I didn't need Richard's approval anymore to know I was a good grandmother. Richard and Jennifer's trajectory went differently. Richard was passed over for promotion, his boss citing family instability. Jennifer lost her PTA position and several friendships. Their marriage counselor suggested separation. Through the grapevine, I heard they argued constantly. Emma mentioned once, "Mommy and Daddy fight about you a lot." 6 months after the ruling, Richard texted, "Mom, can we talk?" We met at a coffee shop. He looked exhausted, aged. "I'm sorry," he said simply, "for everything." It wasn't enough, but it was a start. I'd already rebuilt my life. His apology was just a bonus. Looking back now, I understand that this story was never just about seeing my grandchildren. It was about remembering my worth. We teach people how to treat us by what we accept. I'd spent years accepting less than I deserved. Brief phone calls, canceled visits, excuses. When I finally said, "No more," everything changed. To anyone listening who feels erased by their own family, who's been told they're too much, too needy, too old to matter, you deserve better. Fight for yourself. You're worth fighting for. I didn't win